There is an African saying that until the hunted tell their part of the story, the tale of hunting will always glorify the hunter. Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe has a version of this saying that goes like, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. My favorite version of this saying is by Somalian rapper Kanan, who said, until the lion learns to speak, the tale of hunting will be weak. Until black voices tell black stories will lack the vigor of black authenticity. Diddy trial just ended. He's been sentenced to 50 months in jail, I believe. But his story has not ended. His story is a media event that will be talked about for the rest of humanity, I believe. So we need to tell the story or keep records of the story for posterity. How do we do that? And who should do that? My name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer based in the US. Writer because I believe writing is the best form of record keeping. And to keep records of this Diddy trial, I believe the best person to do that is Breakfast Club news producer Lauren LaRosa. I'll give you 5 reasons why I believe she is the perfect person to tell the story of Diddy trial. Let's start with number 1. Court is an entertainment event in America. So the Somalian rapper Kanan I quoted has a line from a song he has called America. He used to live in Canada. So I think he still lives in Canada. And he has a line called in the song, and then he said, welcome to America, where people get robbed and they celebrate it. People get robbed and celebrate it. That line doesn't mean that people literally celebrate getting robbed. What he's saying is that when you go to America, people have shows where they discuss crimes, like the true crime documentaries, the true crime podcasts you all listen to. Yeah, it's a very, very American culture thing. It's funny because the first televised trial in America happened in 1953, and 4 years later, the first court-based TV show started in America, which means that people saw a trial and were like, you know what, we want to keep seeing this. And that went on to the extent that in 1991, there was a whole TV station in America called Court TV. And when Court TV first started, they only showed trial and people thought it was boring and procedural. And 1995 came. OJ trial happened in 1995. The trial of OJ is, to date, the biggest television event in the history of America. 150 million Americans watched the OJ trial. The population of America at the time was like 260 million. So over half of Americans watched the OJ trial. Let me put this even more in perspective. 95 million homes in America had televisions, which means that more people than had televisions watched the OJ trial. Even more in perspective, if you live in any country outside of America, you don't care about the Super Bowl, right? But in America, that is one of the biggest cultural events, the Super Bowl. And in 1995, 85 million people watched the Super Bowl. That means almost double the number of people who watched what is supposed to be the biggest television event in America than what OJ trial than the Super Bowl, right? More than almost half. Charlie, the math on the math. What I'm saying is 150 million people watched the OJ trial. 95 million people watched the Super Bowl in 1995, which makes the OJ trial sensational. That is why from 1996 till date, court television is one of the most viewed television events in America. Yes, judges like Judge Judy, I believe Judge Judy started in 96, Joe Brown started in 96 or 97. So judges became celebrities in America as a result of the OJ trial. And court TV, which started in 1991, had 10 times the audience they had after the OJ trial, right? And there have been over 50 books written about the OJ trial. There have been different perspectives about the OJ trial, which brings me to my second point, perspectives. Lauren LaRosa of the Breakfast Club is a young influencer, a trained journalist. But the way she covered the Diddy trial was different from both what the mainstream media was doing and what influencers were doing. Because of her background in journalism, she knew the right journalism ethics to apply to the trial. But because of her presence on social media, she knew how to communicate in that medium. That is why she became the biggest exposed person from the Diddy trial. Many of the mainstream television stations started having her on. And actually, she said at some point, some of the journalists were telling her that we can't say some of the things you are saying on our platform. That's why we bring you on to say it. Right? So her perspective is very, very important just from her expertise point of view. She used to be the senior news producer at TMZ. TMZ is synonymous with celebrity culture. The Diddy trial, as sad as it was in terms of the fact that it was a trial about stuff like domestic abuse, it was also celebrity gossip event, unfortunately. And somebody with this level of expertise leads me to my third point, celebrity angle. I remember Lauren LaRosa said something which I thought was interesting, but good for me because that's my guy. She said when Kanye came to the court, that's the day she realized that there are levels to celebrity. There have been different celebrities attending the Diddy trial, but the day Kanye came, she realized that, nah, Kanye is not like any other celebrity. He probably is the biggest celebrity in America. I love that as a Kanye fan, but what I'm saying is she's somebody who understands the world of celebrity and how it plays out. For the third point is she understands the world of Diddy. Fourth point, race. So one of the reasons why the OJ trial was sensational wasn't just because OJ was a famous football player who killed his wife. It's also because OJ was a black man who unalived a white woman. That was sensational. And sensationalism is good television. That's why people tune in to watch. Sensationalism is still at play in the Diddy trial. Diddy has probably been famous my entire life. He has been famous my entire life. And I grew up in northern Ghana, right? When I was growing up in northern Ghana, people in northern Ghana, when they were traveling to southern Ghana, would say, I'm going to Ghana because of how remote it was from the rest of Ghana. And yet, I knew who Puff Daddy was, right? Puff Daddy is an international sensation, but he's also a black man who rose to the mountaintop and now fell from grace, right? There are a lot of people who were heartbroken by how that story turned out, right? There are some people who say it serves him right, whatever. But there is a racial angle to the Diddy trial, right? And so Lauren LaRosa being a black woman is important. I'll tell you why. In 2020, there was a protest in Nigeria called NSAS protest, which was about police brutality in Nigeria. Yes, there's police brutality everywhere in the world. And a book was written about it. And it was written by a white woman. And I remember a lot of people were angry about the fact that a white woman wrote a book about a Nigerian protest. But I wasn't angry. I'll tell you why. When I was a kid, I used to like basketball, which is different from the rest of Ghana. Most people in Ghana watch soccer. So I also like to read. So I bought a book about a basketball player, Michael Jordan. And the book, when I brought it home, it had Michael Jordan and the author of the book in front of the book. And Michael Jordan had his hand on the head of the author of the book, who is a white man. And when my dad saw the book, my dad asked me, "Who is the guy standing with Michael Jordan?" And I said, "He wrote the book." And my dad asked him, "Who is he?" And I said, "He's a journalist who asked Michael Jordan to write a book about him." Michael Jordan said yes. And I remember adding that he's not even a sports journalist. And my dad said, "Oh, interesting. So why did he write the book?" And I didn't have a good answer for my dad. And he told me that because he asked Michael Jordan. That's it. So, in as much as people were angry about a white woman who wrote a book about the Nigerian protest, she wrote it because she dared to do it. So, whoever is going to write about the Diddy trial is going to be the person who dares to do it. And I would love that it will be a person who can bring the full vigor of the authenticity of the Black experience. Experiencing Diddy in Ghana is different from experiencing Diddy in New York. It's different from experiencing Diddy in Delaware, where Lauren LaRosa grew up, right? And so that perspective is important to bring to it. And finally, we are going to remember this age for something. We are going to remember this age for how much social media have transformed news consumption. Right? The 90s were about television. That is why OJ trial was on television. 2025 is about social media. Over 50% of American adults say they get their news from social media. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are the biggest sources of news for most Americans. We don't know how that will mean or how that will play out 20 years from now. But what I know for certain is that all these platforms won't have the numbers they did in 20 years. They do today in 20 years. Maybe they'll have more, maybe they'll have less, but it will change. So what we have is what we have today. So we have to capture how the Diddy trial is playing out on the biggest news platforms, Instagram and TikTok, for the posterity that will come after us, right? That is where I say Lauren LaRosa is the perfect person to do this. She is a trained journalist with a degree in journalism. She is on the biggest hip-hop radio show, Breakfast Club. She is an influencer, Black Girl Grinding. She is a former TMZ journalist. So she has the right expertise, multiple expertise for this story. Different people are going to tell different stories about the Diddy trial. But I believe that Lauren LaRosa's perspective is important for people who are going to study journalism 20 years from today. So she needs to write a book, and you need to subscribe to this channel if you like my perspective. Thank you for watching.